Hey everybody, Josh here, aka Sorcerer's Hat, and I'm back for another video this week. And we've been getting a lot of set 11 spoilers, and so I went through everything that's been revealed so far, and I picked out a bunch of interesting cards that at least are interesting to talk about and maybe like theorize on where they could go in the meta, or just like what kind of decks they could be in. I'm not going to do every card that's been revealed, and I'm not going to do every card completely because it's such a huge time sink. And for those of you that don't know, my dog had surgery this week, so I've been taking care of her and doing a bunch of other stuff around the house, so it's been just very busy. So I wanted to knock something out quick and do some card reveals, and at least have like a little bit of an interesting discussion this week. So I hand-picked all these. If there's a card that like you want to know my opinion on, you can leave that in the comments, and I'll get back to you. Or, you know, if there's another card you'd like me to review in a different video or something, you can let me know that too. But first off, we're going to start with an interesting one that kind of goes into the next one. So this is Elsa, Concerned Sister. She's an inkable 3-cost ruby character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. She quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Clear the Way. When you play this character, you may pay 2 ink less for the next location you play this turn. This is really interesting. In the current meta, I don't think that she would see a lot of play, just because I feel like there aren't a ton of locations that you're trying to get out for free that cost less than 2, right? I think this card in something like a Emerald Ruby discard deck in Infinity would be really good, because you could play her and then you could play something like Hidden Cove for free, which is pretty cool. There's also like Racers, I think, is maybe the like best place you could play this, either in a Amber Ruby or Ruby Steel sort of situation that is like heavily locations. You know, it goes heavy into locations. I think probably Amber Ruby is a better spot for it, just because they have a lot of cheap locations that are pretty good. Like the big one is if you play something like a Racers deck, you can play the Finish Line basically for free. With this, you can also, I believe, play Starting Land, but don't quote me on that. There's other stuff. There's like Agrabah. There was a new, I think, Zootopia location that was revealed that I don't have on this list that she could play for free. There's a bunch, honestly, of decent locations that Elsa could just play for free. And then on top of that, she quests for 2. Her 2/2 stats are not amazing, but she does quest for 2, and she kind of works in that deck. So will locations be a thing next set? I don't know, especially since we do have a card that I don't remember if I put on this list, but it does get rid of all locations. So if locations ever got good, then I think people would just start playing that, and then locations would suddenly be bad. But we'll have to see. I do think this is a pretty interesting card, though, which is why I wanted to bring it up. And it also piggybacks into the next card, which is kind of the shift, pretty much the shift target for, or that Elsa is the shift target for this Elsa, I guess is the way I should say it. So this is Elsa, Ice Artisan. She's an inkable 6-cost ruby character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 1. She can shift for 4. So literally the turn after you play the Elsa, you can shift on and play, or you can shift onto her and play this one. She has 2 abilities. Her first one is Endless Winter. When you play this character, and whenever you play a location, you may exert character with 3 strength or less. That's pretty good. Distant Call. While this character is at a location, she gets +3 lore. Okay, so you can do some pretty cool things with this. You can kind of ignore the location thing. Just playing this character and getting to exert something with 3 or less is pretty good. Obviously, it's not as good as just Elsa the Fifth Spirit. But the thing about Elsa the Fifth Spirit is her time in the meta is limited right now. We know that in August, there's going to be another rotation, and we're going to lose all of Shimmering Skies, which means we lose Elsa the Fifth Spirit, which means this kind of replaces her, but it's not as good. But arguably, Elsa the Fifth Spirit is like one of the best cards in the game. And anytime you make an Amethyst deck, you're like, yeah, I'm playing 4 of it. You know, no negotiations, right? So it's basically a staple. I don't think this necessarily replaces it, but I think it does some interesting things. And does go really good in that location deck. I think you can probably do some shenanigans with this to have her like shift and then immediately quest for 4, which is kind of crazy. And then she also has a 5/5 stat line, which is pretty good. So all in all, I like this card. I do think all of her location stuff is very contingent on whether or not locations even become good. But her just exerting something with 3 or less can be good. Just in general, I think this card's way better when you're shifting her. But when you're just playing her outright for 6 ink, it's not as good. But I still think it's a pretty cool card, and I really like the artwork for it as well. Okay, next up is Chief Tui, Weaving a Tale. He is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, and then, once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on either the top or bottom of your deck. I think, excuse me, I think for a common, this is a pretty cool card. In draft, I think this card's pretty bonkers. Because I doubt there will be a lot of really meaningful removal in this draft format, other than, well, actually there is one. There is one later that we'll talk about. So you do run the risk of that if your opponent happens to draft that, and I don't remember what the rarity is on that. It's a reprint, and we'll get to it later, but I think this is a cool card. I think it, ironically, even though it's a 5-drop, kind of works best on turn 6 because you can play it with the 5 ink that you have, and then you can ink, and then you can immediately use his scry effect. The other thing you can do is, let's say you ramp on 2, and then on turn 3 you play like Cinderella, and that means you ramp to 5, and so immediately on turn 4 you can play Chief Tui, and then you can ink your 6th ink, and you can scry. And he has pretty okay stats. He's a 4/5. That's not like terrible. He quests for 2. That's pretty good. So if you actually do this right, you can sort of help filter a lot, and that probably is like it's your best case scenario for Chief Tui, is doing like a 2/4/5 instead of a 2/4/6, really. But I do like this card a lot, and I do want to test with it, just because I really like scrying. I really like the and I guess for those of you that don't know, scrying is like looking at the top kind of your deck, or like a top certain amount of cards on your deck. This just kind of helps you filter like a lot of bad top decks. It can help you find removal if you need it. Now, you don't get to put it in your hands, but you get to anticipate it for the next turn, which helps a lot. And like, he's not terrible on stats or anything, so he's going to come out and be enough of a threat that he'll probably stick around. So yeah, overall, actually, I dig this card. It's pretty cool. I want to test with it. Next up, we've got Pocahontas, Following the Wind. She is an uninkable 2-cost amethyst character card with 3 strength, 2 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability, What is My Path? Whenever this character quests, gain lore equal to another chosen exerted character's lore. This could be pretty cool. If you have a lot of like in an aggro deck, I think this can be really scary, because you can play her, and then on turn 3, if you have something in your hand that has like 3 lore or 4 lore or something, right? You can't, but although, actually that doesn't work because it has to be an exerted character. So I guess the best case scenario is like, yeah, you have a 1-drop that somehow has like 3 lore, or you have like a Daisy Duck in like an Amber Amethyst deck, and you quest with Daisy, and then on turn 3 you quest with this, so you quest for 4. I think this card is okay, but I do think it is more of an aggro card, and it is more for like shenanigans. I don't know that you put this in just like any deck. Unless there's a, I believe there is a Floodborn Pocahontas that we're going to talk about later. Like, you could do it with that, but I don't totally remember what that card does, so I'll have to talk about that when we get to that point. Overall, I think this card's like perfectly playable, but has the potential to become something like kind of not meta-defining, that's too extreme. Something that pops up in the meta every so often in very specific decks, like maybe an aggro deck or something, but overall, I like it. I think it's kind of neat and cool, so I wanted to talk about it. Next up, we have like a really good common. This is Nala, Romping in the Snow. She's an uninkable 2-cost amethyst character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability, Playful Slide. I almost said Playful Side. When you play this character, chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Pretty awesome and inkable, like perfectly reasonable for a 2-drop, and gives like a really strong ability. This is like amazing for like a blurple. This is amazing for like Ruby Amethyst. If they have a card that doesn't have evasive, you can use this to give it evasive, especially if they have something that has rush. Like, this gives you a lot of different options. You can also, like, let's say you have a Dumbo out and you have another character like you'd rather exert with the Dumbo, you can play this to give it evasive and then use Dumbo's ability to draw a card. I think there's some really cool like applications that you can do with this card. It doesn't look super crazy or super powerful on the first reading, but I actually think this card could see a lot of meta play if evasives are still really good in the next set, and I honestly think they probably will be. But yeah, I think this actually is like a really, really good card. So you're gonna want to find like foils of this probably. Next up, we have Marshmallow, Cranky Climber. He's an uninkable 5-cost amethyst character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. His 1 ability, Icy Blast. Whenever this character quests, each opponent can't ready more than 1 of their characters at the start of the turn. Really interesting. I really struggle to see if this is worth the uninkable slot. I think the idea of your opponent can only ready 1 of their characters is really strong. So if aggro ever gets really out of hand, this is like such a good anti-aggro card. But the thing is, it's only whenever Marshmallow quests, it's not on play. So you aren't going to be able to do that unless you do some kind of like lantern shenanigans in like an Amber Amethyst, or you do something like that. You're not playing this probably before turn 5, and then even then you're probably not activating the ability before turn 6, unless also you're in a blurple, then you probably are doing it on turn 5. But the thing is, like, that's really late against aggro. Aggro, if they get their hand right, they can kind of just win on like turn 4 or 5, right? So I think this card has potential. I think the ability is really interesting, which is why I wanted to talk about it. But I don't know if it'll see meta play, and I think mainly its main problem is that it's uninkable. And man, you really cannot play too many uninkables. Like those slots are just so important in a deck. So I think this card has a lot of potential. I think in draft this card is amazing and will probably win you some games. But in terms of meta, or in terms of like core constructed or infinity or something, I think it's okay. It has potential, but I think it's a little slow, so I think it struggles. I'm gonna say it's like perfectly playable to niche, maybe leaning more toward niche, but I do think it is an interesting card, so I wanted to talk about it. Next up, we have Winnie the Pooh, Hungry Bear. He's an inkable 4-cost Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Looking for a Morsel. When you play this character, you may return an item card from your discard to your hand. I jokingly called this Timu Toa because it's sort of like Tamatoa, except instead of bringing 2 items back, it only brings 1, and then it doesn't have, you know, Tamatoa's amazing ability to quest and play an item for free, but I think it's perfectly okay. I don't think it sees a lot of play, though, just because, like, you're probably just gonna play Tamatoa. Let's be real. Like, that's probably what you're gonna play. And you're probably not banishing many items before turn 4. Like in Infinity, yes, you'll be playing Hiram, but then this is like kind of off curve with Hiram and doesn't feel as good. But, you know, if you play Hiram on turn 4 and then on turn 5, you ink something, you play Winnie the Pooh, get your Popsicle back, and then you can immediately play the Popsicle and then immediately, okay, I'm actually coming around on it a little bit. Then you play Hiram, or you quest with Hiram and draw more cards. I actually think this might have potential. This might be playable even. I'm talking myself into it a little bit. I'm gonna say this is playable, actually. Like, I don't know what you do instead, or what are you taking out of like an Infinity like red blue deck, or what are you taking out of And this is with the assumption that Hiram will not be banned in Infinity, because I actually think he probably will be, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is perfectly playable, but I think it will end up being a little bit more niche, and might not see a lot of play, but we'll see. Interesting card though. Next is Lumpy, Playful Heffalump. He's an inkable 6-cost Amethyst character card with 6 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2, and he has evasive. I think this is like a perfectly reasonable, good card. I think in draft, this card is OP. Just like, it's so insane on stats. It quests for 2 and it's evasive, and like getting rid of evasives in draft is actually kind of difficult. So this card in draft, I think, is pretty nuts. In constructed, I actually think it's pretty strong, and works well if you're doing like a 2-4-6 ramp kind of package, or ramp kind of thing, which Blurple usually isn't, playing like Cinderella. So unless Blurple sort of changes to be that kind of deck, which I don't really think it will, it'll be harder to play this, but I do think that this card is just really strong and sort of just shuts down a lot of your opponent's evasive threats. Yeah, I think it's like, this is like a perfectly solid playable card, especially in like draft and core constructed and stuff. In Infinity, maybe, but there's a lot more removal in Infinity, so maybe not. Like, you might not get as much value out of this. Next up, we've got Darkwing Duck, Drake Mallard. Drake Mallard. He's an inkable 2-cost Sapphire character card with 4 strength, 1 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he has Ward. This is a perfectly reasonable, really good 2-drop, especially if your opponent's playing an aggro build and they play, you're on the play, they play a Daisy, and you play this, suddenly they're like, well, I'm not going to use my Daisy, because they're just going to lose it. And they can't really, like, clap back at you, really, because he's got Ward, unless, you know, they have some way to do that, but I doubt it, right? So I think in some decks, this will be like a really interesting tech card. I don't think this will see a ton of play in a lot of other decks. In draft, I think this is a really good card, just to threaten that removal, to like trade up, because there are a lot of bigger, and I even in this set, in every set, there are a lot of like bigger cards, more expensive cards that have like 4 health. And if you trade your 2-drop for their like 5 or 6-drop that has 4 health, you're feeling pretty good about that. So I think this is a really good card. It's perfectly playable. In core constructed, I think it'll be more of a tech card, but we'll see. Next up, we've got Belle, Snowfield Strategist. She is an inkable 4-cost Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Winter Stockpile. Whenever one of your characters is banished, you may put that card from your discard into your inkwell, face down, and exerted. I also think this is kind of a perfectly playable card. I think it works best in a deck where, like, this works kind of best in like a mid-rangey, I want to say, like Ruby Sapphire deck, but it could also just work in like a in a Blurple, where you know you're gonna kind of trade a lot. So what you can do is, or you're gonna trade at all, right? You can turn your Tipo or something else that you have on the field from just a character that's kind of sitting there into ink. So like if your opponent basically exerts and you have a good ability to trade on turn 4, even if you're gonna lose all your units, you can play Belle on turn 4. If you lose all your units and you make them lose most of theirs, then suddenly you went from 4 to 7 ink on turn like 3 or 4 probably. So not bad. It's again, that's kind of high rolly. I think this is perfectly playable. I do not know where this kind of goes. I think maybe it goes on Blurple, but we'll have to see. I think this is another card that's definitely worth testing. She does have a lot of quest value with the 2 there, so that is enough to make her consider, or put her up for consideration, and she's inkable. So I think you could have some really, really swingy games with this card, and I think in draft this card's pretty dope. I think the worst thing about her is probably the 3 willpower, but I think she's pretty good. She's playable, but I struggle to say that she's going to be like meta or anything. Next up, we have Do You Want to Build a Snowman? This is an uninkable 3-cost action song in Amethyst. It reads, chosen opponent chooses yes or no. If your opponent says yes, you gain 3 lore. If they say no, they choose a character of theirs and put that card on the bottom of their deck. I don't think this is very good. It's got a very like win more sort of energy going on, right? If you're about to win the game, your opponent is never choosing yes. So they're never just gonna flat out give you lore. The other thing is when you choose no, you get to, like, let's say your opponent plays this on you, you get to choose the character that you're putting on the bottom of the deck, right? So I could put my Tipo or my 1-drop and just like, whatever, put it on the bottom of the deck. It's not really that big a deal unless there is some kind of other shenanigans they're doing with this. I think that this card might surprise us at some point in the future, but right now I think it's a little unplayable, or it's a little niche. It's just, your opponent's not going to pick the thing you want them to pick usually, especially if they're already winning and you play this. They're probably just gonna be like, yeah, have some lore, you know? Like if they're gonna, let's say you're not gonna win next turn, you play this and they're gonna win next turn, like they have 18 ink and they've got a Daisy that quests for 2 out, they're just gonna give you the 3 lore. Like this isn't gonna help. And it's also uninkable. So I think like this is incredibly niche to unplayable, unfortunately. All right, next up we've got Terran, Magically Armed. He's an uninkable 5-cost Amethyst character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 1. He has Rush, love that. And he has 1 ability, Weaken the Cauldron. When you play this character, put up to 2 cards from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck in any order. This is really interesting on a few levels. So the first level is like there's the Unga Bunga side of it, which is just, it's a 5/5 for 5 and it's got Rush, right? It's going to take out a bunch of different locations. It's going to take out probably any character that's a threat, and it's going to stay there most likely. But also, if your opponent is playing one of those decks that does a lot of shenanigans with the discard pile, like they want to play Circle of Life and bring back this unit from their discard pile, or they're on an item deck and they want to bring popsicles and stuff back, suddenly you can take that ability away from them. You can cycle those popsicles right to the bottom of the deck, which makes this actually pretty strong in some circumstances. I think his biggest problem in this current meta is that items are not that great, and he doesn't have the ability to target any evasive characters unless you're playing something like Ink Runner. So that is a limiting factor in Terran, and he's also uninkable, so it kind of hurts it. I think in an Infinity meta where people expect blue steel items to be really, really strong and overpowered, I think this card would take a lot of people like off it would put them off their guard a little bit, because suddenly, you know, right before they're going to do their big Tamatoa turn and get popsicles back, you just slam this down, you make their popsicles go away, you know, to the bottom of the deck. And right now there's not really a way to get it back unless there is some way to shuffle your deck and hope that it comes back, right? So I think that this card is playable in draft. I think this card's really strong. Just because anything that has really good stats and Rush could potentially like win you the game in draft, because your opponent might have a really hard time doing it, or they're probably going to have to 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 this card, right, to get rid of it, unless they have some kind of good removal. So I think Terran is actually like a pretty cool card. I don't think he'll see a lot of play in this current core constructed meta just because he has a lot of downsides, but I think in Infinity, in a very specific Infinity meta, is like if we don't see Hiram Band and Tamatoa is still around and Blue Steel items is still around, I think this is actually like a pretty good, like a really great card actually for like a Blurple in Infinity, because it does help you even in aggro, because it's a rush that can take out a lot of characters. or it's a character with rush that can take out a lot of other characters and stick around and help kind of fight back the tide. But also it has that tech to help you get rid of, you know, your opponent's like item shenanigans. So I actually really like this card a lot, even though I don't think it'll see a lot of play in Core Constructed at the moment. But it is cool. But again, it doesn't have to be items. You can cycle any card from their discard. So if you know that they're going to do something with their discard, or they're going to bring characters back, or if you're playing against dogs, this is really good against dogs, or if they're playing, you know, the Surfer Lilo and you want to get that out of the discard, this is also really good for that. So I think this card has a lot of utility wrapped up into like one ability. Really interesting, really fascinating card, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Next, we finally have a tiny Ana shift target. So this opens up a lot of possibilities for other Ana shift targets in both, I believe, Core Constructed, but definitely in Infinity. So this is Ana, little sister. She's an inkable 2-cost Amethyst character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability, Unexpected Discovery. When you play this character, you may put a card from chosen player's discard on the bottom of the deck. So just like last time, and this is kind of in like Amethyst's wheelhouse, because we've seen that other Evil Queen unit that would do it. It would get you lore, but also like if you used it on like a princess, it gave you more lore, right? Give you like 3 or something. I think this card is like perfectly good, and if we ever get to a world where there's a really good Ana shift line, I think this is a really good card in both Amber, Amethyst. I want to say Blurple, but like probably not, just because you are ramping on 2 in Blurple. So like you're probably not using this in Blurple, and if you are, you're gonna cry a little bit. But I think this is a pretty good card. I think Ruby Amethyst could potentially use this, but again, it does sort of depend on if the meta has a lot of cards where or has a lot of decks that are relying on doing stuff from the discard, like Dogs does and stuff. But I think having a low cost Ana target finally is good for people that want to play some of those Floodborn Anas. Next up, we have John Smith, Undaunted Protector. He's an uninkable 5-cost steel character card with 3 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Bodyguard and 1 ability, Do Your Worst. Opponents must choose this character for actions and abilities if able. I found this like fascinating, right? So instead of doing a sort of like Pete referee thing where you just say no one can play actions at all, right? We're locking that out. Instead, we're forcing you, if you're going to use actions or abilities, you have to target John Smith, right? Like if you were potentially gonna use Let It Go on one of their 4-drops or something, and they play this next turn, it's like not only a bodyguard for your characters in challenging, it's a bodyguard against their actions and stuff. It's almost like reverse ward in a way. It's a really interesting card. Will it be played? Like potentially, actually, but only in very specific decks. Like I could see Blue Steel really loving this card. I think this card is like really mean if you play an Aurora and then you play this, because your abilities have to target John Smith, but they can't because Aurora gives him ward, and then your opponents just can't target your opponents. You can't target anything, right? With actions or abilities. That is potentially like incredibly mean. And we're gonna need more board wipes if that's the case, because that's rough. So will it be good? I think in the right deck, like I said, Blue Steel could play this pretty well and do some really mean and interesting things with it. Mostly I find the ability on this card just like fascinating. And like the possibilities are really interesting. All right, we're gonna speed up a little bit because I still have a lot of cards to go through, and we're like half an hour deep into this video. Next up, we have Stitch, Teasing Experiment. He's an inkable 1-cost emerald character card with 2 strength, 1 willpower. He has 1 ability, Don't You Dare. Chosen opposing character gains Reckless until the start of your next turn. I think this card is potentially really strong. It is a little slow, but it can be one of those cards that kind of just like, it sits there, and if your opponent has a really important quester, this just makes them not quest. In draft, I think this could be a really, really strong card. It could potentially like save you a turn if you're like trying not to lose the game, like your opponent's going to win the game or something. It's also a shift target for like Rockstar Stitch, which is currently legal in Core Constructed but hasn't seen a lot of play. So we could see a non-dogs Amber Emerald aggro deck potentially coming back, using this and then using something like Rockstar Stitch to shift out. So I think that if it was any other character, we might say, oh, this card's okay. I think the fact that it's Stitch specifically makes it a lot stronger. I think this is perfectly playable and may even be meta, like potentially. It's really strong. I think this is a really good card. So again, this is another one to keep an eye out for foils of. Next up, we have another legendary. This is Darkwing Duck, Cool Under Pressure. He's an inkable 7-cost steel character card with 6 strength, 8 willpower, and he he quests for 2. He has shift 5, which is interesting because he's not a Floodborn. I don't know what the deal is with that. I think maybe it's a super thing. I don't know if anyone's ever brought that up, but potentially it's a super thing, and I think maybe it's because like superheroes, right? They have their normal persona and then their alter ego. So the idea is that like Darkwing Duck, like this is him in the costume, but then there's Darkwing Duck like out of the costume. Potentially, I think that's maybe how they're thinking about this, but I think it's really interesting that a Storyborn has a shift ability, which I don't think we've seen before. I'll have to do a search after this. He has 2 abilities. His first one is Take That. During your turn, whenever an item is banished, you may pay 1 ink to deal 2 damage to a chosen character. Really interesting, like blue steel items character that I honestly think this might see play in Infinity. And then Evildoers Beware. This character can challenge ready villain characters, and that usually sounds like really hyper-specific, but there are a lot of meta-relevant villain characters in the game, right? Like, right now, just off the top of my head, we've got John Silver, we've got Hades, we've got, like, various Ursulas, right? Like, I think this is actually, like, a really good card. This is playable. It's perfectly playable in Core Constructed. I think this might have a place in Blue Steel items in Infinity. We're probably gonna have to do some testing, but a lot of it does depend on the shift lines and whether or not, Blue Steel items is in a good place. Like, it could be kind of high rolly, but I think the ability to challenge ready villain characters is really good, especially with his stat line. If you shift him out on 5, you have a 6/8, that quest for 2 on turn 5, and if they have a villain character that you really want to get rid of, just challenge right into it. You're not worried about it at all. I think Darkwing Duck's a really good card. Next, we have John Smith. Another John Smith is a snow tracker. He's an inkable 2-cost amber character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. His 1 ability, Follow the Tracks. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted and none of your characters challenge this turn, gain 1 lore. So I think this is kind of interesting. It goes in basically like an Amber Steel aggro deck, but I don't think it's good enough to take spots from what else you would be putting in an Amber Steel aggro deck. So unfortunately, I don't think this card is strong enough to really see a lot of play, unfortunately. But yeah, I think in draft, I think it's probably perfectly okay if you're going that kind of aggro route in draft or sealed. In Core Constructed, I don't really see this seeing a lot of play, unfortunately. Next up, another really interesting Sapphire card. This is Moana, Curious Explorer. She's an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 4 strength and 4 willpower. She quests for 2, and she has 1 ability, Ancestral Legacy. You can ink cards from your discard. Woo-wee! Okay. I mean, right off the bat, art is gorgeous. I love the like snow coming into the border. I think that's so cool. Just makes the card look really unique and interesting, even though it's just like a normal legendary, right? And I believe this is one of the iconics, which I actually will show on screen. And God, I would love to own this, but you know, iconics, I've only ever seen one in person. I've never actually got one. So, you know, but I want to believe, because I like this card a lot. I think it's really cool. The ability to ink cards from your discard, I think, is super interesting. I think I was talking to a judge, or I also saw someone talking to a judge about whether this was like you could ink anything, but my opinion is that you probably cannot. I think you can only ink inkable cards from your discard pile. But even so, like red blue, one of the things that sort of trips it up a lot is that you don't have a lot of card draw in like most of the time. So any card draw you can get is really important. And what this does, while it's not card draw, does help you not ink your hand, right? So you can ink from the discard instead. Like it's almost like having a Great Stone Dragon, which is like an item I really, really love in red, blue, and infinity, because it just means you can kind of stop inking. Or you can stop inking from your hand, really is the idea. And you just use that every turn and you get another ink. And yes, it's delayed because it has to ink exerted, and this says it doesn't. So this is like just way better. And also she's got like pretty good stats. I think this is another case of like, yes, it's a 5-drop, but it's kind of a 6-drop. So you're going to want to play this, like you're going to go 2-4, and then you're going to play Moana for 5, and then you can ink something from your discard pile. Like let's say you used on turn 2, you use Sail the Azurite Sea, and then on turn 3 you play Cinderella and you ramp again, and then on turn 4 you play this. That Sail the Azurite Sea that's in your discard pile now just goes right into your inkwell. Awesome. I love this card. I think this potentially could be meta, like for sure. And it's a princess, so it goes in like any kind of princess decks, like an Infinity or something. I think this is a pretty dope card. It's a pretty dope card. I really like it. Whether or not it'll be meta, we'll see. But I think it might be. I think there's a really good shot that it might be. Next up, we have Elisa Maza, Transformed Gargoyle. She's an inkable 3-cost Ruby character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 2 abilities. Her first one is Forever Strong. Your character's strength can't be reduced below their printed value. Really cool. And then because she's a gargoyle, she has Stone by Day. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand, this character is ready. First off, as someone who's like become a Gargoyles fan in the last few months and is almost finished with the series, I like that we got Gargoyle Elisa. It's pretty cool. Because that only happens in like one episode. It's like kind of it's like a spell that Demona casts over the city, and it makes all the humans gargoyles and all the gargoyles humans. So it's pretty cool. By the way, watch Gargoyles. It's really good. The idea that your character's strength cannot be reduced below their printed value, but could be increased, really interesting. Leads to some really interesting game states where like Lumiere helps, buff this and everything else still, but this means that like you can't have your opponent do like a heads held high or something. It wouldn't work. Or they can't use like Della's book or something. I forget what the card is, or Delamoon's Lullaby or something like that, to lower the strength of your characters. So this makes Ruby like even more of like an anti-aggro color in a lot of ways. I actually really like this card. And also there's this is one of the promos for this set. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good solid card. I'm gonna say it's perfectly playable, but I think it's really gonna depend on the meta, whether or not this sees play. Next up, Pleakley Arctic Naturalist. He's an inkable 3-cost amber character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Signs of Life. When you play this character, if you have another alien character in play, draw a card. I think there is potentially a Amber Emerald alien aggro deck. Whether it's good or not, though, we'll see. Like, archetypes generally haven't been something that's really been that strong in Lorcana. The only one you can really say is like dogs, but even then, it's not because you have cards that say, oh, if you have a dog in play, you do this, right? It's just because the all of the Lady and the Tramp cards and stuff sort of synchronize together. Like, they synergize together just by design, not because they are dogs. Like, they could be any character, and they would still work. We just wouldn't call it dogs, right? But I do think that there is some alien shenanigans that can go on here. I think in Sealed, going into like alien stuff would be really interesting. This works well, especially with that Stitch we just talked about, because it's a 1-drop, and then on turn 3, you can play this. Stitch is an alien, so you get to draw a card. So in Draft, this is really good if you have a low-cost alien. I think it's perfectly playable. I do think the stats are like not great, and not being able, and only questing for 1's also like not amazing. So I think in Core Constructed, this will only see play in some kind of Amber Emerald like aggro deck that maybe leans more on aliens than it does dogs. But it could like be a synthesis of the two. But I think if you don't have an alien in play, this card just really sucks. So I think I'm going to say niche, actually, unless there is a Amber... either Amber Steel or Amber Emerald alien deck that becomes a thing, which I kind of doubt it will. I think this card's really niche. Next, we've got Jumba Jukiba, Prolific Inventor. He's an inkable 8-cost Amber character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower. He quests for 2. He has 2 abilities. His first one is Welcoming Crowd. For each character you have in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. It's really strong. And then I am helping. Whenever this character quests, you may remove all damage from chosen character. Really interesting. It is an alien, but it doesn't really like lean on that. It is an inventor. Doesn't really lean on that. He is an ally. Doesn't really lean on that though. And honestly, the allies is really like a blue steel thing. I think his most interesting thing is his Welcoming Crowd ability. So if you play, you know, let's say you play a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, like you curve out perfectly. On turn 5, I think you can play him. On turn 4, though, if you play a 1-drop, 2 1-drops, and then a 3-drop, or you do like 1-drop, 2-drop, 2 2-drops, or a 3-drop and a 1-drop, you get the idea. The earliest you can get him out is turn 4, and then like he's interesting. In Draft, I think this might be a really good card, just because sometimes your boards can get really big in Draft, and there's the potential to play him for free in a very specific kind of deck is there, especially if there is sort of an Amber Emerald alien deck that uses like Rockstar Stitch, and you can like cheat out 1-drop characters and then play Jumba Jukiba for free, right? And just flood the board. I think there is potential to that kind of deck could exist. So I think I want to say playable, but I'm going to go with niche for now. Next up, we've got Nega Duck, Public Enemy number 1. He's an inkable 5-cost Ruby character card with 6 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 1. He can shift 3, or he has shift 3. I don't believe we've seen... If we have, I haven't seen it. The low-cost Nega Duck that this kind of shifts onto. And he has 1 ability, Sticky Fingers. Whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore and you gain 1 lore. I really like the lore drain kind of Ruby stuff, like Pirate's Life and other things like that. It's really gonna depend on what kind of like deck like that emerges. Like I could see a Ruby Sapphire kind of lore drain control sort of deck coming out, but it's probably not gonna be that great. But I do think that this card is potentially pretty good. I think in Draft it's really good. But in Core Constructed, I think it's probably niche. Remains to be seen if there's any benefit to doing like lore drain or anything. Next up, we have White Rabbit, Late Again. He's an emerald, he's an inkable 2-cost emerald character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. He quests for 1. He has evasive, and he has 1 ability, underdog. If this is your first turn and you're not the first player, so you're going second, you're on the draw and it's your first turn, you pay 1 less to play this character. So if you're on the draw, this card's awesome, or at least like pretty good. You get an evasive 2/2 out, you know, immediately to like challenge something. If it's your first turn, this card kind of sucks. Well, it doesn't suck. It's just not as good. The one thing I will say that's kind of interesting about this is it is a potential answer to a Diablo and Infinity. The only problem is that if your opponent goes first, you go second, you play this. If on the next turn, they shift Diablo, they can just sing like Strength of a Raging Fire. They can just sing Let the Storm Rage On or something and just take this out, and then you are way behind, and suddenly they're way ahead of you, you know? I think this card's playable. In Core Constructed, though, I sort of doubt it'll see a lot of play, but I think in Draft, it'll be perfectly okay. Okay, we have another really interesting one. This is Grandma Tala connected to nature. She's an uninkable 12 cost. I think this might be the most expensive card in the game. Sapphire character with 6 strength, 6 willpower. She quests for 2, and her ability is for Ancestor's Gift. For each card in your inkwell, you pay 1 less to play this character. So if you ink every turn, the earliest you can play her is turn 6, and then at that point, she's a 6/6 that quests for 2 and doesn't do anything, which is not as exciting. If you top deck her later in the game, like, she just gets cheaper, especially if you pair her with the Moana that's just going to ink stuff from your discard, or you're ramping, right? I think this card, the later it gets, the more free it gets, which is kind of nice. I think it's pretty good. And the fact that actually, I think this card's potentially really good. And the reason I say that is because that means if you do the 2/4/6 when you ramp, that means on turn 5, you could sing a 10 cost, like, sing together song. You could sing like Mob Song and do 3 damage to 3 characters. That is potentially so strong. This actually might be super good in like Blue Steel. Or it can sing Second Star to the Right by itself. Ooh, man, I actually think this card might be really good. The hardest part, though, is if you have like 4 of these in your hand, you are going to hate your life. But when you high roll with this and you sing like Second Star, that's really strong. It's really strong. I think she's playable. She might be meta, but we're going to go with playable for now because I just think it's a good card. And it opens the door for some really interesting possibilities. All right, next up is Ohana Means Family. This is an inkable 3-cost Amber action. Remove all damage from chosen character of yours. Draw a card for each 1 damage removed this way. So this is basically Rapunzel without a character to play. And I think that this is a pretty good card. It is legendary for a reason. It's not a song. But there is potential with this, especially with us having Daisy and us having a lot of like higher statted characters. I think this gives Amber some really pretty reliable card draw if they are able to, if they're able to trick their opponent into letting them put 3 damage into a character, right? So this is potentially a really strong card. I like it. I'm going to say it's perfectly playable. Next up, we've got Tinkerbell's Snowflake Collector. This is also the Set Champs card for next set, and the art is freaking beautiful. It's by Connie or Coney. I cannot remember how to say her name. I met her at Continental. She was very nice. And I'm very happy to get my hands. I want this card. I need it. This is an inkable 3-cost Amethyst character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1. She has 2 abilities. Her first ability is Flurry of Delights. While you have 4 or more cards in your hand, this character gains evasive. Card draw is getting a lot easier next set, I feel like, just with some of the, like, with things like Ohana Means Family and another card that we're going to talk about in Amethyst really soon. And then she has Spectacular Find. While you have 7 or more cards in your hand, this character gets +3 lore. In this current, if you drop this card into this current meta, it would be a little hard to do. But I do think in the next meta, I think card draw is going to become a little more readily available in certain ways, especially in like an Amber Amethyst setting, right? So I think that this is a perfectly playable card, but it will probably mostly go in an Amber Amethyst deck, if I had to guess. But we'll have to see. I think it's honestly pretty interesting card too, and I think the set champs art is beautiful. And if this card ends up being good, I think it will urge a lot of people to go out to set champs for sure. I think this is playable and could potentially be meta, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got Ruben, Sandwich Expert. He's an inkable 2-cost Amber character card with 1 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Lunch Special. Exert this character, remove up to 2 damage from chosen character of yours. For each 1 damage removed this way, you pay 1 ink less for the next character you play this turn. So Ruben can not only heal, but he can help you sort of cheat out characters before they're supposed to come out. Mainly like Jumba Chikiba, who we just talked about. He would help, you know, but help lower the cost, especially if like you have a few characters out and then you shift like a Rockstar Stitch and you challenge something and it survives, and then you can heal the damage from this and get 2 off. There's something there, right? There's some potential to like combo off and play Jumba like really early with this. I think in that like context, this is a pretty good card. But I do struggle like outside of that context to see like a lot of use for it, especially like you're probably not going to get a lot of use for it on turn 3, but if your opponent sees this, they probably will just stop questing because you're going to challenge something and then you're going to do this and you're going to play something a turn early, right? So I think this card has a lot of potential. I'm going to say it's like playable, too niche, but it's a really interesting tool that will catch probably like not experienced players off guard, but experienced players will probably be able to play around this pretty easily, I would say. Next up, we have the Frozen Vine. This is an inkable 3-cost Amethyst location with a move cost of 1. It has 4 willpower and 2 passive lore. Its 1 ability is Persistent Problem. When this location is banished, if there was an exerted character here, return this card from your discard to your hand. So this can be a really interesting card in like a Ruby Amethyst locations deck or in any of the potential locations decks. The one problem with it is that it does have pretty low willpower, so a lot of characters are just going to take this out, and you kind of need to like play it right, you know? So I think it's okay. I do think it will take some skill to play this sort of correctly, but the thing is, if you move a character there and they're exerted, and then your opponent just banishes the character and then banishes this, then you don't get the benefit of it. And suddenly it's not that good. So I think it's like kind of niche, but it is a teaser for set 12, set 13, which they showed off this week as well. Next up is another kind of interesting card. This is Freeze the Vine. It's an inkable 4-cost Emerald action card that says banish all locations, draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. I think this card doesn't see really any play, but the second that locations become a problem, everyone starts running this card. And then suddenly locations won't be good anymore, right? Because if you are ignoring the locations aspect of this, you're paying 4 ink to draw 2 cards and discard 1, and you're paying 4 ink to draw a card. So in that context, it's not good. But I think, and if we had sideboards in Lorcana, I think this would be an excellent sideboard card. But I don't see it. I think this is a, like, it'll be good when it's good, and then when it's not good, it's not good. All right, next up, another alien. This is Angel, Experiment 624. She is an inkable 4-cost steel character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 2 abilities. Her first one is Untouchable. While you have no cards in your hand, this character gains Resist 2. Okay, interesting. And her second ability is Good Aim. Once during your turn, you may choose and discard a card to deal 2 damage to chosen character. Man, in like a amethyst steel or a purple steel deck, this might be like super mean. Honestly, this might be a really good card to help them with aggro, because you have no problem kind of dumping your hand. You could play this and like have a have Goliath also. If you put Goliath out, you can help, like, you can dump your hand, and then you'll have, you know, it's easy because you could ink something, and then anything you didn't want, use her ability, throw it away, do 2 damage, and then play something, and suddenly your hand's empty, and she's got +2 resist, and you can maybe trade something, and then at the end of your turn, Goliath gives you more cards to do it all again. So I think in that context, this card's like really cool. This card could also be cool in like an Amber Steel deck. I think this card has a lot of potential. I think it's perfectly playable. Whether or not it's meta, don't know, but I love the idea of just doing 2 damage to something. It's like one of my favorite things. I just point at my problems and make them go away. This can also be really good in a green steel deck, now that I think about it, because green steel has a lot of things that just like work with damaged characters and all that. So I think this is playable, and could possibly find a place in the meta. All right, getting near the end. This is Scrooge McDuck, Reformed Ebenezer. This is an inkable 6-cost Sapphire character card with 4 strength, 6 willpower. He quests for 2. He can shift for 4, and he has 1 ability, Spreading Joy. When you play this character, you may put a card from the top of your deck face down under each of your other characters. If you do so, those characters gain ward until the start of your next turn. This is potentially so strong, especially if you're playing in a boost deck and you use this instead. To just put stuff under all of your boost cards. I think this card is potentially really strong in the right circumstances. I think in draft, you're probably not pulling this off much, but you still would play it because it's just got a lot of good stats. And it's probably at the edge of like where you want your bombs to be. But this has a lot of potential. So I'm going to say playable to niche for that one. Next, we've got Pete, Ghost of Christmas Future. And I'm sorry to be this person. Christmas Carol is like my second favorite book of all time. I reread it every year. It is The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is what it's called. It's not The Ghost of Christmas Future. Anyway, he's an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 1. He can boost for 1. And he has 1 ability, Foreboding Glance. Whenever this character quests, look at a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards under him. Put 1 into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any orders, like Hyper Ramp, potentially. If you somehow did some shenanigans to put a bunch of cards under this. I think it's pretty cool. I think it will lead to some like really cool decks and some really like cool big-brained plays, right, that we'll have to see. So yeah. This is potentially crazy, honestly. Now that we have seen the Ana that will shuffle something into their discard, so you can potentially play this for 2, basically, instead of 5, or, I mean, you can play for 0, but the idea is like you can, well, you know what, let's read the card first. Before I get way ahead of myself. This is Anna, Soothing Sister. She's an inkable 5-cost Amethyst character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 2 abilities. Her first one is Unusual Transformation. If a card left a player's discard this turn, this card costs shift 0. And then she also has Warm Heart. Whenever this character quests, you may gain lore equal to the lore of a character card in your discard. If you do, put that card on the bottom of your deck. So interesting. This is like such a big brain card. So you can, in theory, on turn 2, you can play the Anna child, shuffle something from a discard. If there happens to be something in someone's discard that early, you can shuffle it in and then play this Anna for free. Now, she can't do anything on that first turn, and you probably don't want to play her that early, but this is potentially a really interesting, cool card that can like combo in some really strange ways. I think the shift 0 thing is very interesting. We'll have to see if it even pays off. It might not be good enough, but I think it's a pretty interesting card. Next up's also another really interesting card that I think could cause a lot of discussion. This is Miko, Skittish Scrounger. He is an uninkable 1-cost amethyst character card with 1 strength, 1 willpower. He quests for 2. He has evasive and 1 ability, Bottomless Pit. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, choose and discard a card or banish him. I think in an aggro deck where you're drawing a lot of cards, this card is potentially really strong. You putting stuff of your own accord into your discard can be really strong if you do it right and you have the right kind of deck. In Core Constructed, I don't think this sees any play whatsoever unless there happens to be some kind of, amethyst discard sort of deck thing, but I don't know. I think in Infinity, this has a lot of potential. I'm going to say niche to playable, but really interesting card that I think in the right deck could actually be really strong. Next up, we have Tigger, Bouncing All the Way. He is an inkable 4-cost amethyst character card with 4 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Splendiferic Bounce. Whenever you play this character, you may return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. This card is really good because it can be anything. Really. I mean, it just has to cost 2 or less. It can be one of your characters. It can be your opponent's character. It can be their location or their item. Like if you are ahead of them and they have if you're in Infinity and they have a popsicle out and you know they're going to hire them that popsicle next turn, you make them choose, right? Throw this out or like make their Diablo go away. And then in Core Constructed, make one of their high questers go away, like their low-cost high questers go away for a turn, like bounce, all kinds of stuff. I think this is a really strong card. It will be really good in draft, and it will be probably really good in like an emerald or an amethyst emerald deck, if I had to guess. Next is Winterspell. Is an inkable 1-cost steal action that says chosen location of yours can't be challenged until the start of your next turn. Draw a card. Perfectly reasonable in a locations deck. I think in any other deck, it's not that great. And even in the locations deck, I think it might be a little niche. So I'm just going to go with niche. It's like the best I can give it. Next up is The Cold Never Bothered Me. This is an uninkable 3-cost Ruby action song. It says, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a location card and put it into your hand. Put the rest into your discard. It's very interesting. You pay 3 ink less for the next location you play this turn. So this goes in that locations deck. You play 3-cost Anna, 3-cost Elsa. You play a location for free, and then you can like try and just piggyback off of this and play another one for free to just like really, get the tension going. Being uninkable is a little unfortunate, but I think if you're playing that like Amber Ruby location deck, this could be pretty good. I don't think you play this in like literally you don't play this in anything else, honestly. So I'm gonna go with niche. It's a niche card. Next up, God, I love the art on this card. This is one of my favorite Disney songs of all time, by the way. This is Colors of the Wind. It is an inkable 4-cost amethyst action song that reads, each player reveals the top card of their deck. Draw a card for each different ink type of cards revealed this way. So the way this works is most of the time you're going to draw probably 1 to 2 cards, and that's probably it. So this is by no means a friends on the other side. However, in some instances and in some matchups, you probably will draw maybe 3 to 4 cards, right? So if there's a dual ink card that comes up, that's 2 inks. So if you're playing a Blurple and like you reveal your card and you reveal Into the Unknown, which is a Amethyst Sapphire card. That's 2. And then your opponent, let's say they're Emerald something, and they reveal an Emerald card. Well, you just drew 3 cards, right? That's a little more high rolly. In a mirror match, you're never going to draw more than 2, which makes this less good in like a mirror match. But I think like it's pretty decent. I don't think this sees a lot of play in Infinity because I think you would just rather play Friends on the other side. It's just more reliable. You're getting 2 cards every time. You can sing it a turn earlier. So I think it's perfectly fine. And in Core Constructed, I'm sure it will probably see some play. Probably for sure. Next up's a really funny card. This is Let's Get Dangerous. So it is an inkable 4-cost steel action song that reads, each player shuffles their deck and then reveals the top card. Each player who reveals a character card may play that character for free. Otherwise, put the revealed cards on the bottom of their player's deck. You probably aren't playing this in Blue Steel items. You probably might play this in, if you were going to, in just Blue Steel and Core Constructor right now, or like an Allies, deck. I think it's fun and funny, and that's maybe all it needs to be. I don't know if this card is good or not. I think in some matchups this card will be insane, but I think it's fine. It's a fine card. Next up, we've got Akud et Emuti. I have no idea. This is an uninkable 3-cost Amber action song that reads, you pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn, draw a card. It's okay. In Draft, I think this is really good. But in Core Constructed, I don't think it'll probably see any play, to be honest. I think there's a chance in Infinity this could see play because you could like, you could play Singer Cinderella, right? And then on turn 2, you ink something, you sing with this, and then you can play on turn 2, you can play a 4-drop and draw a card. Like, that's pretty cool. It's a little high rolly and it's pretty cool, but like, any other circumstance that you top deck this, you're gonna not feel great. Like, this is a really good opening hand card, but other than that, not so much. So we'll see. I'm gonna say niche, probably. This is Force of a Great Typhoon. This is an inkable 2-cost Ruby action song that reads, chosen character gets +5 strength this turn. Dude, this card's cool. I actually like this card a lot. This card just really like helps you trade like super well. You can have like a random 2-cost character sing this. Like you could play an Elsa the 5th Spirit and then have one of your random 2-cost characters sing this, and suddenly your Elsa is a 7/5 with rush and evasive, and it can just delete anything basically. I think this is a perfectly playable card. I think it's cool. And it is going to help Ruby out probably a lot, to be honest. All right, we got 2 left, and I believe that there are both reprints. So these are both not only, I believe they're also Fable reprints. So they're like reprints in a weird way. Which is a little odd, which means that I feel like they want these cards to be like core, if that makes sense, because we know that when rotation happens in August, we're not gonna have another reprint set. So what the meta is probably gonna look like is a lot like it looks now in Whispers, instead of having the very like low powered meta that a lot of people did not like. But I mean, it's strike a good match. It's an inkable 2-cost Emerald action song. It says draw 2 cards and choose and discard 1. It's a perfectly reasonable card in very specific decks. And I do believe it, it just goes well with all of the kind of like discard pile stuff that's happening in the new meta. So I think, it's a good reprint. It's like a kind of just a solid reprint. And then our final card, another reprint. Actually, honestly, one of my favorite cards in the whole game. I used to put that, like, when deck lists didn't call for this, I would just put it in because I was like, well, it's like having more copies of Hades, and who doesn't want that, right? It's Let It Go. It's an inkable 5-cost action song. Put chosen character into their player's inkwell face down and exerted. We all know this saw a lot of play. It saw tons of play in set 1 meta. It saw off and on play all until rotation happened. I really like this card. I don't think there's really, again, this is like a core Sapphire thing. I think that this card's going to get reprinted probably till the end of time. So I am happy to see it back. I like the new artwork. I will probably continue to use the original artwork just because I have it and like I like it. But I do like this new one. It's cool. And that's it for card reviews. Once again, if there's a card that I did not review here and you want to know my opinion on it, you can let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed. This went way longer than I expected it to, but I had a lot to say about a lot of cards. I think so far this set actually looks really interesting. I know it's supposed to be a draft set, and they didn't really explain how, but I want to believe them. So I'm hoping that when we actually get our hands on it and play sealed, that it will feel like a draft set. Like it'll feel like we have removal and we have cool characters and card draw. And so far it kind of feels like that. It feels like in a lot of ways, just like Whispers felt, it feels like with this set, it sort of feels like we're getting back to that power level that we were at like before rotation and stuff, which I'm happy about. But I'm excited for this set. Let me know how you feel in the comments, and please like, subscribe, all that stuff. It helps me out a lot. And then I haven't announced it yet, but I have this Sorcerer's Hat Enchanted card. I will probably be, I know this isn't like the craziest enchanted card, but I might be doing a giveaway very soon where I sign this and send it to you, and it'll be free. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be a subscriber. So look out for that on the YouTube channel. I will announce it when it's happening and how to sign up and all that. Anyway, that's going to be it. Bye. Love you.